out, is the BBC institutionally ageist? And rather than ASBOs, should we bring back the stocks and public humiliation for criminals? Only just out of the stocks are tonight's Friday A-Team. No-nonsense dropper of truth bombs, Chloe Dobbs, BBC radio legend Liz Kershaw, and fearless political commentator Lewis Oakley. They are ready and raring to go. But first up, in my Friday feeling monologue, more shock revelations about the Chancellor Rachel Reeves and her professional history. And in a Friday night exclusive, you won't believe what I've unearthed. Some shocking facts about the lovely Rachel Reeves. But first, the news headlines and the highly qualified Sophia Wensler.
Mark, thank you. It's just gone 8 o'clock. These are your headlines from the GB Newsroom. Irish MMA fighter Conor McGregor has said he intends to appeal after a woman who said he raped her won a civil claim for damages. Nikita Hand has been awarded £206,000. However, she has lost her lawsuit against Conor McGregor's friend, James Lawrence, who she also accused of raping her in a Dublin hotel in 2018. Mr McGregor posted on X saying he was disappointed with the verdict and would appeal, while Miss Hand spoke outside the court, saying the weeks of her civil case against the fighter have been a nightmare.
My mum and all my family and friends. Lastly, I want to thank my daughter, Freya, who I'm most grateful for. She has given me so much strength and courage over the last 6 years throughout this nightmare to keep on pushing forward for justice. I want to show Freya and every other girl and boy that you can stand up for yourself if something happens to you, no matter who the person is, and justice will be served. To all the victims of sexual assault, I hope my story is a reminder that no matter how afraid you might be, speak up, you have a voice, and keep on fighting for justice.
Now, Ukraine's military has, for the first time, confirmed the use of British-made Storm Shadow missiles inside Russian territory. It comes after the UK vowed to continue supporting Ukraine following threats from Putin to strike the UK. The Russian leader confirmed the country had tested a new intermediate-range weapon in response to Ukrainian missile strikes earlier in the week. He also added that Russia are entitled to strike those countries who supported Ukraine. 2 people who were detained over a suspect package which led to the closure of Gatwick Airport today have now been released. Sussex Police says the package reported has been made safe by officers from a bomb disposal team, and the airport has now been handed back to its operator. The 2 people who were detained have been released and allowed to continue their journeys. Thousands of airline passengers were delayed after Gatwick Airport's South Terminal was evacuated because of the security alert. Donald Trump has been granted permission to seek dismissal of his hush money criminal case in which he was found guilty earlier this year. It comes in light of his recent victory in the November 5th US presidential election. The judge presiding over his case also agreed to delay the sentencing scheduled for next week. And the King has accepted flowers on behalf of the Queen during his arrival at Royal Albert Hall for the Royal Variety performance tonight. King Charles received the flowers meant for Camilla from 8-year-old Iris King-Taylor as he arrived at the event this evening. It comes after news that the Queen was not able to attend the performance because of a recent chest infection. In a statement, the palace said Queen Camilla continues to experience some lingering post-viral symptoms and that she had received advice from doctors to rest. It is the latest high-profile event Her Majesty has missed due to illness, having also had to miss remembrance events. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Mark.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good Good evening. Now, whilst Sir Keir Starmer is proving to be as unpopular as Prince Andrew at a Girl Guides fundraiser, things are looking even worse for Rachel Reeves, whose budget has seen the OBR downgrade our growth prospects and predict higher inflation and interest rates. Growth under Rishi Sunak was 0.5%, the highest in the G7, and now it is 0.1%. I don't know about you, but I really miss Rishi. What a crying shame that this talented and honest politician who committed to Rwanda, reduced inflation to 2% and boosted growth, now spends his days wandering around his rural constituency, listening to farmers bemoan the price of chicken feed and bull semen. Speaking of which, who is Rachel Reeves kidding? Calling October's nightmare budget a budget for growth is like Vladimir Putin calling his illegal invasion of his eastern neighbour a battle for a new improved Ukraine. Rachel Reeves has proudly told anyone that will listen that she is Britain's first woman Chancellor. How embarrassing for women. But all is not lost, because I've been on LinkedIn today, which is a networking website where professional people publish their professional history and their qualifications. And it turns out that Rachel Reeves has had an incredible career. You won't believe it. First of all, she was a senior economist at the Bank of England for 55 years. But it doesn't stop there. Here is our top 10 list of major things that Rachel Reeves has achieved in her life. In at number 10, did you know that Rachel Reeves was the 5th Beatle? Amazing but true. In at number 9, she scored the winning goal in the 1966 World Cup final. It was a header. In at number 8, she defeated Muhammad Ali in the ring in 1981, ending his boxing career. She packs a punch. At number 7, Rachel Reeves split the atom in 1917, thereby single-handedly inventing nuclear fission, which sees the production of gamma photons and the release of enormous amounts of radioactive energy. At number 6, she invented the iPhone and the fax machine and the hostess trolley, whilst we're on inventions. At number 5, Rachel Reeves discovered America in 1492. That's right, she's amazingly well preserved. She must use a good face cream. And hopefully, with her connections to America, maybe she can get us that trade deal. At number 4, not many people know this, but Rachel Reeves built the pyramids. That's right, 2,000 years ago. Knackering work, she did it completely on her own. And let's hope that she can now build all those houses she promised. At number 3, Rachel Reeves memorably starred as Del Boy in Only Fools and Horses, alongside Buster Merryfield and Nicholas Lyndhurst. I always thought Del Boy was a lefty. At number 2, now there's a lot of speculation about whether Shakespeare was actually a woman. He was. It was Rachel Reeves, the greatest playwright the world has ever seen. That's why her speeches in the House of Commons are so captivating. And at number 1, last but not least, I don't know if you know this, but Rachel Reeves defeated Hitler and ended the Second World War. And apparently, she still drinks a couple of bottles of brandy a day. Well, it's working, because she's the best. What a CV. I've got to say, I can't wait to hear what this amazing lady does next. Either way, I suspect her visit to the job centre is just a matter of time. Reacting to that and much more, tonight's Friday Night Friends, my absolutely brilliant A-team. We have no-nonsense dropper of truth bombs, Chloe Dobbs, BBC Radio legend Liz Kershaw, and a brand new star on Friday Night Live, making his second appearance on the show, fearless political commentator Lewis Oakley. Lewis, good to have you back.
Thank you.
The Chancellor's got to worry. She's now the butt of jokes, isn't she? Not least on this programme.
She is. I mean, what can you say? I mean, retrospectively changing your experience on LinkedIn, I mean, they should have seen that coming. How did they think no one would notice it? However, I will say, when it comes to the election we just had, I don't think anyone went on LinkedIn, saw her LinkedIn posts and thought, oh my God, I was going to vote Tory, but now it's swung it for me, I'm going to vote Labour. I don't think it's the biggest thing that's ever happened, but I actually do think it brings on a bit of a bigger question. I mean, you know, we've had 14 years of Tories, ended in disaster. We've had 5 minutes of Labour, it's a disaster. Actually, you know, are these politicians the best place to be running things like the economy? Should we not maybe have them hire someone that could do it, that actually does have that great experience? That would be my thinking.
Well, that's an interesting question posed by Lewis there. Were things disastrous in July of this year, Liz Kershaw?
Oh, definitely. But before that, she did dupe the people of West Leeds when presenting herself as an economist in the election there to be their MP. So she...
I mean, she's been an economist for a good number of years. Yeah. Are we not nitpicking here?
Well, I'm an economist. Well, what's the qual? I've got economics A level at the age of 16. I did an economics segment as part of my management studies degree at Leeds University. Could I not call myself an economist?
Does it matter, though? Is this trivial?
At least I know Maynard Keynes.
Does this affect, like, my viewers and listeners who are worried about whether they should switch on the radiator tonight?
There's no reason for her to have lied. There's no reason for her to have been so dishonest, because we all know that ministers, members of the cabinet, are total amateurs. They switch jobs every few months, and suddenly they're in charge of defence, and then 3 months later they're an expert on education. None of them know from their elbow, and they rely on the civil servants of this world, the top civil servants and the departments that they head. So in her case now, the Treasury. Just say, these are my beliefs about society, this is how things should be run, these are my values, and if I'm put into a job like that, I'll work my socks off for you. But please don't claim that you've got the qualifications for the job.
Interesting.
Because 99% of them don't.
No, I mean, Chloe, does she ride out this political storm?
Well, I mean, it partly depends what else crops up on the news. If it's a slow news day, then she'll be unlucky. If you get a busy news day, then she'll be lucky.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I had this conspiracy, not seriously, but conspiracy theory that maybe the reason why we allowed the Ukrainians to use those British missiles and to nearly start World War III is so that there would be something in the news to cover up the CV story. So we'll see what happens. I mean, this is just another huge Labour mess-up. We've had so many of them right from day one. It's just the cherry on top of a huge pile of Labour lies. And, I mean, no doubt there'll probably be another Labour scandal next week, and then we'll forget about the CV thing, but it's just all building up, and their approval ratings are just plummeting, and they're not going to recover. I think we all knew that, well, most of us knew that the Labour cabinet were not very qualified before we saw the change to her CV, but then that really just felt like a smack in the face to the electorate.
Well, at least we now know that, apart from being a toolmaker's son, Keir Starmer is an experienced farmhand.
Well, that's quite something, isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, that was this week.
He's knee-deep in the brown stuff this week, let me tell you. It's going to be a good feeling. I mean, Lewis, does this stuff matter, this CV stuff, does it matter? Do my viewers and listeners care?
It matters, right? You're holding one of the highest offices in the land. We expect transparency, and I do think, if you're being elevated to such positions, you need to be whiter than white. I mean, there's been a lot of talk this week about, oh, well, everyone lies a little bit on their CV. Well, everyone isn't in charge of the nation's finances. So I do think it's important. I don't think it's, the worst thing any politician's ever done. I think Labour have messed up quite a bit in the 5 minutes they've been in, and this is not really near the top. Oh, you disagree?
No, carry on, sorry.
I thought you were going to go in about a ravenous defence there.
I just had a big...
No, so I do think it matters. It's not the end of the world. It's important, but I do think we have to think about what kind of standards do we want to hold our politicians to? And I think when it comes to, just honesty about what your experience is, then I think that this is relevant. But I do step back and I go back to your point. It's like, but they do switch around every 5 minutes.
But Lewis, does it matter if she winds up becoming a good chancellor? Because Labour are very, very clear, and the public will agree, because they've just elected a Labour government, that actually the Tories messed up the economy. And the reason why the budget's been unpopular is not because it's an incompetent budget, but because it's plugging a £20 billion black hole. They don't want to tax the farmers or employers, but they've been given no choice because of Tory failure. So if she can deliver at number 11, is that all that matters? Is that not the priority?
Look, I want the country to succeed. If she can do something magical with the numbers and we're all just throwing gold at each other, happy days, she's not going to succeed.
Why do you say she's not going to succeed?
Because there's just too many incompetencies. This 22 billion budget came out of nowhere. What they're doing to the farmers, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I think her incompetency is already clear as day, and it's hilarious it's hilarious what the lefty.
By the way, can I just say that Rachel Reeves actually built that chair? It's a trap chair.
It's hilarious what the lefty spin doctors at The Guardian have been up to try and get Rachel Reeves out of this, saying, oh, she may have lied on her CV, but she has already shown to be the best Chancellor ever, way better than the past 14 years. But, I mean, I'm sorry, but no. She's blaming the Tories for this 22 billion black hole, acting like I'm good at maths, it was just the Tories. But after she made her budget plan and then showed it to the Treasury, they said, OK, you've accounted for the 22 billion black hole, but you're actually missing another 16, 17 billion. You need to put up more taxes. She couldn't do basic maths. She's awful.
Incompetence is a bit harsh, isn't it? It's following, you know, previous Prime Minister Liz Truss, who I'm imagining you supported a couple of years ago.
No, I didn't actually.
Did you not?
No,
Did you not?
I actually voted for Rishi in that.
What is it with Leeds? They're all Leeds.
You're sounding quite left-wing tonight, Mark.
Well, you know what?
It's just been balanced.
I had a couple of drinks.
It doesn't mean a word.
Christmas has come early. What it is I want to make sure, and any show I'm involved in will never become an echo chamber.
You're very sincere there.
Well, I always want to hear the opposing view, because my viewers and listeners love that, because they find the shows that we do here at GB News are balanced. And I think it's only fair, therefore, to offer a bit of balance regarding Rachel Reeves. Liz, she's got time to fix this. Can she and will she?
Well, possibly, but I think what's been happening since the election was called is that the British people, slowly but surely, and this is what they hate most, they've been made to feel like fools, that, you know, to be played, and their intelligence to be insulted. You know, whether it's, you know, the repetition of my dad was a toolmaker, to suggest he was from such humble beginnings, Keir Starmer, when actually his dad owned a factory, and Rachel Reeves is a top economist, and David Lammy is a diplomat.
Oh, blimey. Yes, indeed. And on that one, I think we'll move swiftly on. Still to come, as an international court go after the Israeli Prime Minister, would Winston Churchill have been branded a war criminal for trying to defeat Hitler? And as Golden Oldies Sue Barker, Phil Tufnell and Matt Dawson say they didn't want to leave a question of sport but were forced out, is the BBC institutionally ageist? We'll debate that next.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Should we talk about Gordon Brown? He's been talking about this child benefit cap, and he's, you know, given speeches about it and feels very, very strongly about it. He says there's twice as many children living in poverty as pensioners in this country, Paula. It's made the front of the eye, but pretty much that's the only paper taking this up, because everything else being dominated by the Archbishop of Canterbury.
Yeah, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I just don't think you should have child upon child if you can't afford it. And I believe anyone in a committed relationship should be able to have one child, definitely. Or maybe even two, but one, definitely. But they want over two. I mean, I just think that's insane. If you're not working, why do you expect taxpayers to pay for one, two, not just two, three, four, five, six?
You've taken the words out of my mouth, and I just think this is really
It's not a radical thing,
If you can't afford them, what normal person would have them? Now, Isabel tends not to agree with me on this, but I just don't think the state should be paying for children.
But it's not paying for children, is it? It's just...
Well, it's aiding. It's giving them money. Taxpayers are paying. And let's not forget, 1 in 3 children are now born to mothers not born in the UK. And we've got an ever-growing benefit bill.
30% of children born in this country, their parents were not born in the UK.
But we have a fertility problem, don't we?
Maybe Starmer and his team are willing to find a compromise or give up a bit of ground on this issue. But it's very rare that Gordon Brown kind of makes a campaigning moment. And that will cause... obviously, this is an issue that, amongst the backbenchers, is difficult for Starmer.
I think, I might be wrong, I have a feeling Nigel Farage and Gordon Brown are on the same page on this issue, which might surprise people. I might be wrong.
Yeah, very, very interesting.
So just be clear, what does Brown want? What's he looking for?
He's basically saying that this cap on the child benefit is heinous and basically hurts children.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
To be personal.
Brilliant stuff. Now, folks, as golden oldies, Sue Barker, Phil Tufnell and Matt Dawson say they didn't want to leave A Question of Sport but were forced out, is the BBC institutionally ageist? Who better to ask than 31-year-old former BBC presenter Liz Kershaw?
Golden I am.
By the way, can I just say I got the age 31 from your LinkedIn?
Yeah. No, I did get mixed it up with a number of years I did on BBC Radio.
Congratulations on your stint as Director General, by the way. Yeah. That was a good decade.
Oh, the things I achieved when I was at BBC. I was asked this morning I went to interview somebody for an article I'm writing about tax on private schools, and he stopped me and he said, "Oh, Liz, I loved your radio show, and are you never going to sue them for wrongful dismissal?" And I said, "No, because you either let it get you or you walk away." But it was quite evident at the time that the only reason that I was being removed with record listening figures and cited in management missives around the building every quarter was that I'd reached the grand old age of 62. I dreaded turning 62 because at 62, that's when they got rid of Janice Long. And the only other person before me, the only woman before me on Radio 1, apart from Janice, was Anne Nightingale, who they kept on but at 2 o'clock in the morning for an hour.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, you get on Radio 2, so I did all these stats at the time, so forgive me if they're not bang up to date, because it is a couple of years ago. Last time I looked, on Radio 2, there was one woman over 60.
Yeah,
and that was Elaine Page on a Sunday afternoon doing Sounds of the Musicals.
Correct.
And at the same time, you could have Johnny Walker, who was fantastic, my hero, but he had to retire a couple of weeks ago for ill health at 78. He carried on after 60 quite easily. You've got Tony Blackburn, who's past 80 now. You've got Bob Harris. You've got Paul Gambaccini, both knocking 80, but not women.
So it's older women, and Vanessa Feltz, she also left the BBC.
Vanessa said quite openly at the same time, she went about the same time as me, that she felt the atmosphere and she felt that she was viewed as an old bag or whatever. And you can feel that, and it's just wrong. And I knew. You can tell when people are resigned, when people say, "Oh, this so-and-so's leaving the show," like Sue Barker from Wimbledon. You know, she's one of our only great female tennis players that Britain's ever had, and not so knowledgeable and competent as the presenter. Why did she have to be changed? Was it for Claire Balding, who's never knowingly picked up a racket?
Well, I know. I mean, Claire Balding is a good broadcaster, but there does seem to be a bit of an age issue and maybe even a sexism issue.
Yes,
does the Beeb have...
definitely combination.
This is a concern by Liz. I mean, in my world, Liz would still be on the BBC if I was running the place. Never say never, Chloe. But she is on GB News, which is fantastic. So we're very happy to have you here. But what do you think, Chloe? Does the Beeb have a problem with older people and older women in particular?
I mean, potentially. I can understand why you would want to have some mix of age amongst your presenters and not have everybody be old, but I don't think that you should dismiss someone just because they're getting on a bit. I'm a young person and I love seeing Sue Barker doing the commentary at Wimbledon, especially in sport. It's fantastic to hear from the old masters who really know the sport. They're absolute experts. I'd rather listen to them than someone who's young and brand new and doesn't know it very well. The old people who are masters, they can tell you old stories from the previous games. I think it's fantastic. And also, a lot of the time with shows, it is the presenter that makes it. It's the presenter that attaches people to it. People associate Wimbledon with Subaka, for example. You know, I mean, look what happened with Top Gear, an example of where you change the presenters and the viewing figures just drop right down. It's the people that people know and people become attached to that make the show what it is.
How are they
switch people in and out all the time?
Can I just quickly say that I'm sorry, Lewis. Can I just quickly say that I don't want people to think that I thought it was a job for life.
Yes.
That I dropped dead with my headphones on.
No, you were delivering. You were delivering.
But what? And also, if you know, if I am gone, or people were there forever, then people like Chloe, who might have ambitions in that direction, wouldn't ever get a chance at it, would they? Somebody had to go back in 1987 on Radio 1 for me to get a show. So I understand there's got to be a
Yeah, but you were doing the numbers.
Yes, but what the question
Just like
was,
Ken
is
Bruce
the
was.
BBC ageist, and the BBC has got a thing about older women, particularly.
Well, look, I think Liz is entitled to make that point. I mean, the BBC would argue there are plenty of older female broadcasters on the network. Lewis,
No,
the
there
BBC...
aren't.
Who have they got?
On BBC Radio, which is run... So you've got Radio 1, 1 Extra, Radio 2, 6 Music...
Zoe Ball's knocking on a bit. What's she, about 60, 70 now?
I wrote an article 2 years ago about this, and I said Zoe Ball is knocking whatever age it was. Zoe, watch your back.
Oh, my gosh. Listen, Lewis, the BBC are damned if they do and damned if they don't. They've got millions of viewers and listeners to their services every week. Many happy customers. What's the problem?
I think that they have got to figure out how to compete in a new age world. They are losing viewers to TikTok and YouTube and GB News. They've got to compete, and so they have to refresh their formats. They have to get fresh talent in. And yes, there is established talent, and of course we need that to a degree, a percentage. But also, I feel like with the BBC, especially because it's our money that they're spending on these presenters, the older and more established some of these presenters get. I mean, the money they're taking home is ridiculous, whereas you could get someone... cheaper in, that's getting their first experience, that actually might be able to revolutionise some of these shows, that might be able to have the TikTok element of it as well. And I think that's a point as well. The amount of money that some of those presenters are being paid is like, well, actually, I think
about Hugh Edwards' salary when he got in trouble.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Well, we do need
save a bit of money now.
Okay.
You do need knowledge and expertise. I'm not trying to get my job back. I'm enjoying my life, but I do think that both sexes, genders, whatever you want to call it, should be treated equally.
And isn't this showbiz? We could all be replaced at any second working in showbiz.
Yeah. Not you lot, you're far too good. OK, folks, and also you're competitively priced. Let's crack on. We live in a topsy-turvy world where a country like Israel gets attacked after being attacked. Ever since October the 7th, the single biggest assault on Jewish people since the Holocaust, the press, politicians and much of the public seem to have had it in for the only democracy in the Middle East, one which is seeking to protect its citizens and eliminate the enemy. For every other country every other country is allowed to do that, but not Israel. Why isn't Israel allowed to defend itself? What's happening in Gaza is a colossal nightmare, but because of Hamas, not Israel. If you use innocent civilians as human shields, if you store armaments in hospitals and primary schools, then the carnage is going to be horrific. But for some strange reason, Israel and its Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are being cast as the bad guy. Judges at the International Criminal Court have issued an arrest warrant for him. Now, you couldn't make it up, could you? I would never personally seek to demonise a country that wants to defend its borders and seek the elimination of a hateful death cult like Hamas, whose only military objective is the destruction of Israel and the death of all Jews. It makes you wonder whether Winston Churchill would have been arrested whilst trying to defeat Hitler during the Second World War because of German casualties and damage to German cities. From where I'm standing, I can't see the difference between Hamas now and the Nazis then. It's a bit like, I don't know, the Irish pop duo Jedward. Which one is which? Do remind me. It is genuinely terrifying to think how the International Criminal Court might have judged Churchill's actions during the Second World War, which was a battle for Western civilization. But if you fight for that these days, it looks like the only place you're going to wind up is not in the history books, but prison. Chloe Dobbs, do you think that Churchill would have been branded a war criminal now?
I mean, potentially if it was happening today. I think what's odd about this is that this one war has had way more focus than anything else. Muslims killing other Muslims, no one seems to take notice. But in this specific case, everyone's focused on it. You see Palestinian flags hanging everywhere, people on the street every Saturday for over a year now. It's bonkers. And the number of course, it's absolutely, horrible that civilians who are innocent have to die in wars. If there could be no wars, that would be absolutely fantastic. But Israel needs to defend itself. They have a very uphill battle, as you mentioned, when you've got Hamas storing, using people as human shields, storing armaments and whatnot in schools, kids' bedrooms and whatnot. But they are doing everything that they can to try to protect civilians where possible. The number of people that died, if we go back to Churchill, it's German civilians that died with the Allied bombing of Germany was around 350 to 500,000 people, it's estimated.
Yeah.
That is way, way more than the number of people that have died in Gaza. But no one is saying Winston Churchill was a horrible human being for trying to save the West from the Nazis. And this isn't just about Israel and Gaza. This is about saving the world from Islamic extremism. Hamas and the other terrorist groups, they're clear. It's Israel first, and then America, and then the West. So we need to support them. We need to support Netanyahu. This arrest warrant is just bonkers.
OK, Lewis, what do you make of this idea that Netanyahu should be in prison as he seeks to defend the only democracy in the Middle East?
Well, it's really hard for me to comment on because I'm not a lawyer. I don't know exactly the ins and outs. But on the question about...
Say you're a lawyer, everybody else makes it.
Yeah, I haven't updated my CV yet. Look, on the Churchill thing, though, I think, that there's definitely some arguments people could make for it in hindsight. But I think the key difference is, when Churchill was around, like a lot of these things like the Geneva Convention, those things, they didn't really exist. And I think that the people... Now, for a historical lens, the attack that Britain faced at the time was existential, and so I think that that's probably where people would draw the line on the Churchill argument. OK,
listen, very, very good and very succinct, I have to say. Folks, we have got lots more to come. Folks, how about this for a debate? Rather than ASBOs, should we bring back the stocks for public humiliation for criminals? We'll debate that next.
Hello, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Storm Bert arrives during the next 24 hours, bringing with it a multitude of hazards, from heavy snow to strong winds and increasingly heavy rain for many as well. Here comes Storm Bert from the Atlantic, carrying mild, wet and windy weather, but also bumping into the cold air that is resident across the UK. And that means that by midnight, the rain is reaching Northern Ireland, but it's turning to snow for many, and likewise mid to North Wales will see some snow predominantly over the hills. Quickly, though, the mild air arrives and turns that back to rain by dawn, and it will be heavy rain for Wales, Northern Ireland and the southwest, accompanied by increasing winds, a risk of gales in places. So a wet and windy start to Saturday for many in southern England and South Wales. Very mild, temperatures at 12 or 13 Celsius first thing, likewise for Northern Ireland. But for Northern England, as well as parts of Scotland, we're going to see a longer period of snow, 2 to 4 hours through Saturday morning, and that snow is going to be heavy. It's going to be accumulating thick and fast, up to 10 centimetres at lower levels, for example the Vale of York through the central belt as well, 20 to 40 centimetres over hills, accompanied by gales. That's going to lead to blizzards over the hills of Northern England and Scotland, as well as power line accretion, and so risk to power interruptions and risk of really treacherous travelling conditions. But by the middle of the afternoon, much milder air arrives, turning that snow back to rain and resulting in a rapid thaw with the risk of flooding in places. The rain continues to build up across many western and southern parts of the UK at first on Sunday. More than 100 millimetres possible for Dartmoor, the mountains of South Wales, and it's a windy day for many on Sunday as well, with further gales. The south coast as well as the far northwest, much quieter weather arrives for the start of next week.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Rather than ASBOs, should we bring back the stocks and public humiliation for criminals? Lewis Oakley.
Absolutely not. Come on, we're not barbarians. We don't need to indulge in that. There should be fair crime and punishment, and the public should feel that people that break the law are appropriately punished, and that's it. We don't need to get which they're not, and that's where we should be drawing the line. We don't need to lower our standards by going back to free.
Oh, Lewis, let's lower our standards. Let's put people in the stocks. Let's stick a bell on shoplifters as they sort of clang and ding and dong while they walk around, so we know just what bad people they are.
No, you know what? It reminds me a little bit of COVID, of like people being shamed for not wearing masks and all of that kind of stuff, and that social stigma of they are vaccinated, they're not vaccinated. We don't like social stigma.
We're talking about muggers here, you know, and sex offenders and that sort of thing.
I feel that very strongly that, you know, the law is not being seen to be done. People seem to be getting off more and more, and that's not good, and we do need to address that. But lowering our standards to this and throwing tomatoes at people and booing them. It doesn't matter anyway. They just turn it into a viral TikTok.
Liz, for me, the idea of living in a police state becomes ever more attractive.
I thought you were going to suggest that we, you know, just Tyburns, just at the bottom of Edgware Road, where Marble Arch is now, that was where they used to do public hangings.
Brilliant.
Hang, draw and quarter them. I thought you were advocating that. We don't need to...
What have they got there now? Pret-a-manger?
Tents. We don't need to bring back the stocks because we've got the techno version of that, which is social media. People get put in the stocks, you know, figuratively speaking.
Yeah, but for normally when they haven't done anything wrong, like Alison Pearson.
Yeah, but that's the baying mob of the 20th.
But would you like to see a bit more public humiliation of criminals? Maybe they should have to wear orange jumpsuits or something.
I'd like real criminals to be arrested, investigated and dealt with by the police instead of them wasting their time and hours by chasing people for a tweet that they posted a year ago, or a childminder from Chester being locked up for 18 months for posting something, thinking better of it and deleting it. That is just outrageous.
I agree. But, Chloe, what's wrong with a bit of public shame if you've broken the law?
Well, I agree with Liz that we have sort of public humiliation on Twitter and the other platforms these days, so maybe we don't need tomatoes thrown at us and bells. And I'm not sure why you're in favour of it, Mark, because let's be honest...
Because I want the crime to end, the antisocial behaviour. Criminals don't think they're going to get caught. And the other issue is they're proud of it, they're not ashamed. They should be ashamed.
But the police force, the way that they operate at the moment with their two-tier policing, right, it's going to be us lot for tweeting and whatnot that have got bells on us and tomatoes thrown at us. So I don't really want to be a turkey voting for Christmas, to be honest.
OK, well, then you can get stuffed because it's time to move on. Listen, folks, family show. We've all had a drink. Behave yourselves. OK, packing your shorts and sunglasses. Yes, indeed. That is what the holidays are all about, isn't it? Isn't going away just fantastic as you anticipate a couple of weeks of summer sun? Looking at pictures online of the hotel where you'll be staying and mentally reserving sunbeds before the Germans get hold of them. Having a pint or two at the airport at 8 in the morning and not having to feel like you've got a drink problem. But what are the downsides of travelling? Long queues for the X-ray as the guy in front of you looks like a Hamas operative trying to smuggle nuclear weapons through security. Discovering too late that your passport hasn't been renewed since Clement Attlee was Prime Minister. And the extortionate cost of paying airlines to take your baggage and for the privilege of that. Well, good news, because Ryanair and EasyJet are among 5 airlines which have been fined £150 million for abusive practices, such as charging passengers for hand luggage. About time too. Sometimes it costs more for your bag to travel than it costs for you to travel. So, is it time to end this money-grabbing racket? Chloe Dobbs.
No, I think that the reason why we are able to get across over to Europe for only 30 quid, 50 quid, super cheap holidays is because of all the charges that they put on people. So people like me who actually read the rules, and I check that my bag is the right size before I go. I pack it properly, my liquids are the right size and whatnot. I get to have a really cheap holiday. The idiots that don't bother to check the rules and they've got a bag way too big, they are cross-subsidising my holiday with the fines that they get. So I think it's fantastic.
Why do you travel so light? Remind me never to go on holiday with you, because I would imagine all your clothes are quite stinky.
No.
You never heard of changing an outfit from time to time?
I know all.
Are you one of those, it's basically underwear and a hairbrush and I'm good to go?
No. I actually like to pack a lot of stuff, but I know all the techniques on how to squidge things and
is that
pack them very small. And you can buy on TikTok, they sell all the special bags that allow you to pack loads into a tiny space.
Is that right?
Yeah, you can buy one online.
So how many changes of outfit can you squeeze into a bag, a legal bag?
No, you wear them all. That's what you do on Ryanair, is you wear it all.
Yes. So you're basically like a Russian doll as you walk through security.
Exactly. So you're going to be really warm, and you can do stuff like take a pillow on the plane with you and stuff the inside of the pillow with clothes. There are lots of tricks. There are
as long as it's only clothes.
Hacks.
As long as it's only clothes, Chloe. I know you're a very exciting and vibrant young woman. Listen, what do you think about this, Liz Kershaw?
I think it's time this
By the way, what goes into your bag? God forbid.
A huge case and a hat box and a picnic hamper.
Do you travel like a Kardashian, basically?
I do. That's why I normally go on a cruise where I roll up at Southampton. People take my bags, the next appear in my cabin, and there's unlimited luggage. Tops the planes. What really gets me is, like, recently, for 50 quid, you could fly to Jersey and back, so we went. But that meant taking a bag this big, and we thought, we'll buy stuff while we're there, and then we'll pay to bring it back or chuck it. Anyway, you spend all your time deciding what to take, packing it into a tiny bag, stuffing it up into the locker above or the seat underneath you, and then some 24-stone woman, you think, walking down the aisle, you're thinking, please don't be sitting next to me. Of course, I ended up with my head, like, because of the shape of the plane, on quite a small plane.
Are you fat-shaming?
I am fat-shaming.
Are you fat-phobic?
I was fat and now I'm not, so I can say these things.
That's it.
So, that's pressed against that. Her arms right here. When there were refreshments brought round, she was elbowing people. So my thing is, you should be weighed when you get to the airport. There should be a weight thing, like 15, not that's too hard, 12 stone. There's your own weight and anything else you can carry in a bag to make it up. Now, that would suit men, because men generally weigh more because they're bigger, generally, but men take fewer things in the way of clothes on holiday. So everybody would be happy.
That's actually pretty smart, I've got to say. But listen, Lewis, what do you think? Should we clamp down on the airlines for charging so much for baggage?
Yes, it stresses me out, especially as a dad with 3 kids, because I've got like 4 different people's hand luggage to worry about. Is that going to make it, or am I going to get charged for all of them?
Yeah.
So it's an absolute, awful. Actually, before our last holiday, I actually had to run out and get a bag because I was like, it's 2 centimetres over, and actually brought my little girl another bag because I was like, and it's just the stress you don't need. And to be honest, when you're buying the holiday and you're already paying a couple of grand anyway, I'd rather spend a couple of, another 20 quid there, just I don't have the worry at the airport. That's what I need, especially because as a dad, you've got to keep these kids entertained for this flight. So I have a bag of tricks, and I can't downsize that. I can't just fold that into a pillow.
Fair enough. Brilliant stuff. Look at Lewis there, bragging about being 2 centimetres over. How the other half... Next up, should Britain follow Sweden and reduce immigration to 0? That's next.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
On the 8th of October at Battersea Arts Centre, a new orchestra launched its inaugural season. The orchestra, which is named Chromatica, is formed of some of the best young musicians in Britain. They're due to perform in traditional venues and in community spaces. The aim is to bring their youth and dynamism to a wide repertoire of music. Predominantly, they'll work with emerging conductors who will have the chance to shape the orchestra and its repertoire. To share her experiences of bringing the ensemble together, I'm joined by the violinist and Chromatica orchestra lead, Maren Bosma. To what extent is this novel? To what extent is this new ground?
Well, new ground, it is new ground in a sense that this is a completely new orchestra. Obviously, in the current sort of cultural climate, it's not really easy to set up a new orchestra. And so in that sense, it's a novelty for us to kind of try and carve out our space in the current climate of musical orchestras and musicians in Britain.
Yes, I mean, it's quite odd in a way to think of a new orchestra because the ones that we have tend to be struggling and numbers indeed have been reduced. I used to be associated with an orchestra which unfortunately went under. You've got some private backing for this.
Yeah.
Why do you think the private backers have been willing to give you support? What is it that they see as your unique selling proposition?
Well, Chromatica Orchestra essentially is an early career orchestra. So we're formed of all sort of top musicians who've graduated in, say, the last sort of 5 to 10 years. Because everyone is of that generation, there is a sort of enthusiasm and dynamism that we bring to the stage I think is quite unique. The orchestra's mission, it's really focused on creating opportunities for young emerging musicians.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Should Britain follow Sweden and reduce immigration to zero? Liz Kershaw.
We've got the channel and they haven't. And I mentioned that because I was in Holland.
I thought you were talking about GB News. Yeah. We do have the channel.
Yeah,
but we've got that water ought to protect us and it doesn't, right?
This head of Dutch border force said to me, because I went to this dinner party.
Was it a dyke?
I don't think... No, I don't think he says to me about a finger there.
No, I'm talking about the technology by which they reclaimed land in Holland 200 years ago.
That's what you're talking about. He said, you are sure lucky to have the channel. And because he was basically saying, we can't keep anybody out in the Schengen area.
Yes.
And I thought, he's right, because I got on a train in Brussels and I just rocked into The Hague and nobody asked me.
Easy.
Yeah, so he was... But actually, the channel is our problem, as it's proved. Because if you are Sweden, they've got... they're surrounded by sea, aren't they? But there's a bridge over from Copenhagen to the dangly bit, Norway and Sweden. So you can get there by land. You can turn people back on land and they're not going to die on the spot. We have got a real problem because if we try and turn somebody back, it's they'll drown and you're responsible. So actually, that Dutch guy was wrong. I think the channel's a liability.
That's a fascinating angle that I hadn't considered previously. Lewis, would you consider a Swedish-style pause on immigration just while the infrastructure catches up, housing, GP appointments, schools?
I don't think anyone's calling for something as drastic as a zero policy. We're not going to have anyone immigrating. There are certain people and certain professions.
It's net zero.
Net zero, so
right?
they've got more people coming out.
500,000 people live a year, so we're allowing quite a lot of people
100%.
to come in.
I think there's a balance, right? Clearly, the immigration status at the moment, with the amount of people coming in, people do not like it. And I think that's why you then see people, well, the pendulum will swing the other way, then we'll have no one. There is a happy medium. I mean, if you look at the figures now, we're having the record high immigration that we've ever had. So clearly something has to be done. It is something that the Labour government have to tackle head on, because as we've just seen in America, the immigration thing was one of the big things, and not having secure borders was a massive thing. So it will flip the politics if people aren't careful with it.
Indeed. I mean, Chloe, not to be unkind, but this is another Tory disaster, isn't it? The mass immigration. It's happened over the last 14 years. Boris Johnson opened the floodgates about 3 years ago, which is why, I think it was last year, 700,000 people. That was the legal net migration figure, plus illegal immigration. What do you think about a Swedish-style stop to this?
I mean, absolutely. We should not necessarily forever, but as you suggested, until infrastructure, housing, etc., can keep up. I mean, the country is in absolute crisis. I mean,
what do you think? A sort of five-year pause, just to recover the stocks?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I said to Lewis, this isn't as extreme as it sounds on the face of it. It doesn't mean nobody can come in this country. It doesn't mean we can't bring in people that we potentially need as doctors in our NHS, for example. We can bring in a number of people that matches the number of people leaving, and be very, very specific about who we bring in to make sure they are only people who are going to contribute to our economy, our services, our infrastructure, not people who are going to bring over a whole family with them of dependents who are all going to sit on benefits.
Well, what about the care homes? What about the fruit pickers? You know, who's going to do that low-paid work? Because you can't just bring in brain surgeons and rocket engineers, can
You're
you?
specific about the people that you need, whether that's high-skilled or low-skilled.
But that might involve legal net migration of 300,000-400,000 people a year.
Well, that's too many.
And then you don't get your pause.
No, I think we should have the pause, because clearly it's not working as it is. It's not the case that we've brought in these people who are high-skilled, low-skilled and whatever, and it's grown the economy massively, and everyone in Britain is now rich, and we've got all the NHS doctors we need, everything's happy days. That's clearly not what's happened. I mean, look at reality.
Right. Liz Kershaw, what do you think? A 5-year pause on immigration?
What we're talking about here is, think of it as in a micro way. It's your house, and you said to yourself, I need a cleaner or a gardener. So you put your feelers out, you reach out, you advertise, somebody comes and introduces themselves, you decide they're the right person, you let them into your life, your property. That's different from somebody climbing in through the window, saying, I'm moving into your spare room, we're going to watch what I want on the telly, I'm going to rearrange the furniture, you have to change the menu, you have to dress in a certain way, and that's the difference between welcome people and illegal people breaking into the country.
That sounds to me like you're happy with legal net migration levels very high. This is not what the Swedes are doing. The Swedes have tackled illegal immigration, but they've also tackled the legal as well. They don't want it anymore.
What's happened in Sweden is that the most peaceful, liberal, laid-back, cool country in Europe has become anxious and frazzled because if you go to somewhere like Malmö, I know people who've been there and they were supposed to be staying the night and they left, they moved on. You know, I've not been myself, that's anecdotal, but from people I trust, because the atmosphere and the landscape is just so different.
Well, crime has soared in Sweden. Fascinating stuff. Folks, what a debate. Well, let me tell you, there's more debate to come because the marvellous Ben Leo is up at 9.
Hello, Mark. I have to say, I was in tears down the studio looking up at the screen and watching your discussion about bringing back the stocks and public humiliation. Very good stuff. There's been an update to the Jaguar woke rebrand row. Their managing director has come out and laid the blame at someone's door. Can you guess who? I will reveal all very shortly. And also, Christmas has been cancelled. We went down to London's Oxford Street today. Not a word of Christmas uttered anywhere. You've got happy holidays, happy everything and merry always. Holiday wonder lights, which should be Christmas lights, and so on and so on. So I'm asking, is Christianity dying a sad death in the UK?
Well, let's hope it's not. This is a Christian country after all. Lewis, thank you so much. I should say, Ben, catch up at 9 o'clock.
Lewis?
Ben Leo live at 9. Lewis
McKenzie.
Oakley, you're on the tip of my tongue. Thank you for a brilliant return to Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, as well as the truly excellent Liz Kershaw and the one and only Chloe Dobbs. Yes, indeed, folks. Well, I'm back tomorrow and Sunday, 9 to 11, for Mark Dolan tonight with all your favourite elements. Mark Meets, My Big Opinion, and, of course, My Take at 10. Thank you to James, Elizabeth and Ben and the team for working hard today. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. Ben Leo's next.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Storm Bert arrives during the next 24 hours, bringing with it a multitude of hazards, from heavy snow to strong winds and increasingly heavy rain for many as well. Here comes Storm Bert from the Atlantic, carrying mild, wet and windy weather, but also bumping into the cold air that is resident across the UK. And that means that by midnight, the rain is reaching Northern Ireland, but it's turning to snow for many. And likewise, mid to North Wales will see some snow predominantly over the hills. Quickly, though, the mild air arrives and turns that back to rain by dawn, and it will be heavy rain for Wales, Northern Ireland and the southwest, accompanied by increasing winds, a risk of gales in places. So a wet and windy start to Saturday for many in southern England and South Wales. Very mild temperatures at 12 or 13 Celsius first thing, likewise for Northern Ireland. But for Northern England, as well as parts of Scotland, we're going to see a longer period of snow, 2 to 4 hours through Saturday morning, and that snow is going to be heavy. It's going to be accumulating thick and fast, up to 10 centimetres at lower levels, for example the Vale of York through the central belt as well, 20 to 40 centimetres over hills, accompanied by gales. That's going to lead to blizzards over the hills of Northern England and Scotland, as well as power line accretion, and so risk to power interruptions and risk of really treacherous travelling conditions. But by the middle of the afternoon, much milder air arrives, turning that snow back to rain and resulting in a rapid thaw with the risk of flooding in places. The rain continues to build up across many western and southern parts of the UK at first on Sunday. More than 100 millimetres possible for Dartmoor, the mountains of South Wales, and it's a windy day for many on Sunday as well, with further gales at the south coast as well as the far northwest. Much quieter weather arrives for the start of next week.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This week is Chocolate Week, the ultimate celebration of everything rich, sweet and indulgent.
Yes, and we now have the best person in the studio with us to satisfy all of your chocolate cravings. We're joined now by master chocolatier Ollie the Choc. Ollie,
hello.
Really
Hey,
good
Ollie.
to see you this
Thank
morning.
you for having me.
And you brought some of your chocolate in with you.
I did. I brought some tasting samples. You're very welcome to